Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when it's fine to. Just want to read you something I read. I came across this sometime back. This is some years ago, and just want to share it. There's a guy named uh, Richard Day, Dr. Richard Day, and back in 1969, I'm going to share with you some things that he said. You know what I mean, keep in mind this was 1969, so that's what 54 years ago, 55 years ago. My man, right? Yeah, 55 years ago. And Dr. Day said that sex will be separated from marriage and reproduction to break up the family and reduce population. Abortion, divorce, and homosexuality will be made socially acceptable. Will be given permission to act out. It will be made more difficult for families to stay together. More women will work outside the home and more people will remain single. Now, just on those few things right there, what are we looking at? I mean, women and Democrats, men and women, are up in arms because Roe versus Wade was overturned. I mean, they mad because they don't have the right to murder their baby. I mean, you do what you want to do. That's not my business. But I don't think you understand the implications that it has on the rest of society. I don't think these women understand the implications that it has on their mental status when they perform an abortion. And do what you want to do. But these same hypocritical women didn't want you around them if you would take the shots. Look at divorce in our country right now. Look at homosexuality in our country right now. I mean, how many families are continuing to break up regardless of what color they are? Look at all the homosexuality and transgenderism on display in front of us, and they trying to do what they can to force us to accept the behavior. Hey, do what you want to do. You're going to be judged for that. But see, they always like to say, you can't judge me. The Bible says you can't judge. Well, you ain't reading the same Bible I'm reading. Because the Bible says the man a spiritual man can judge all things. But the ultimate judge is going to judge all of us. But see, the Bible says the spiritual man can judge all things because the spiritual man is trying to lead you away from abomination. And see, it's more difficult for families to stay together. Look at how many women work outside the home now. That had nothing to do with liberating no woman. That whole agenda was to destroy the family and bring more taxpayers into the government system. Look at how many people are refusing to get married now. See, sports instead of dolls will be promoted. I'm back to Richard Day. Sports instead of dolls will be promoted to girls so they would seek achievement instead of family. I mean, look at how many women are more actively engaged in watching sports now. Girls will be taught they're the same as boys. Boys going to be taught the same as girls. Pornography, violence, and obscenity on TV and in movies will be increased. I mean, I was looking at when I was growing up, there was a TV show used to be called Chips, California Highway Patrol, Punch and John, and they did a movie on the show a few years ago. It was straight garbage. But I was actually reading, what the producer said about the show, and they said there was only, I think, one episode when any cop on that show pulled out a gun. They said even though the cops had guns, the show was coming on at prime time at 8 o'clock at night, when we knew a lot of families would be home having dinner and maybe watching TV, they said. They said, so we did never wanted to show any instance where a cop shot anybody on television because we wanted to maintain a family-friendly outlook. Now look at every cop show on TV now. Cops shooting everybody. Now, I'm not saying, because the criminals shooting at the cops on the TV too, but what something like that does to us is it deadens our senses when we see these things happen in real life. When we see homosexuality on TV, it deadens our senses to seeing this in real life. When we see adultery on TV, it deadens our senses. When we see pornography on TV, it deadens our senses. When we see violence on TV, it deadens our senses. When we see families continuing to break up on TV, it deadens our senses. Now, this is not Richard Day, that's just me talking right now. And so Richard Day said people will be desensitized to violence and porn and made to feel life is short, precarious, and brutish. Music will get worse and will be used for indoctrination. Now, what's that book I read some years ago? Oh, I can't even think of the name of it. But the author was talking about how the music of the Beatles was really used. I didn't say it. I can't think of that. The guy's name was John. I know it was John. Oh, I can't think of that. It might have been the Conspirators Hierarchy. Maybe I can't remember. But look up the Conspirators Hierarchy. That might have been it. But he talked about how the Beatles was being used to manipulate and indoctrinate the people. And there's information out there about how when you had groups out there like Poor Righteous Teachers, rap groups, BDP, Boogie Down Productions, Public Enemy, X-Clan, and a few other groups like that sprinkled around that were actually teaching black youth their history and things like that were troubling them. How the industry got together and said, okay, we need to do what we can to break up these type groups because we don't need them educating blacks. And that's when we saw the rise of gangster rap, because they wanted to get our minds away from that and said, we're going to use the music, we're going to use the rap music to lock up more black men. So Dr. Day said music is going to be used for indoctrination. It's going to get worse. I mean, I tried listening to some music the other day. I'm like, what are they even saying? I mean, black people get mad all the time if they hear a white person say the N-word. But I came across a lot of videos, you be scrolling through YouTube trying to look at something to watch, and you see all these white women out there dancing with this rap music with the N-word flowing. And I mean, my videos got 2 views and their videos got 300,000. But I put it on the radio one day and I'm like, I see why I don't listen to the radio no more. But Dr. Day said there will be unemployment. What are we seeing right now? It's going to see mass migration. What are we seeing right now? In order to uproot long-established communities, social change will be introduced in port cities and work its way to the heartland. And he said that's why the East and West Coast are so liberal. And who do the most complaining about what Texas does with their border? The East and the West Coast, California, New York, the straight bastions of hell. Dr. Day said a cure actually exists for cancer in the Rockefeller Institute, but it's kept secret for purposes of depopulation. He also said there will be an increase in infectious man-made diseases. What are they talking about right now? Disease X. We haven't discovered it yet. Doctor, they also worked in weather modification during the war. And he said weather is going to be used to wage war or create drought and famine. Now, for the past 3-4 weeks in the Houston area, we've been getting diluted with downpours. I mean, almost every day. And then we had a week, it didn't rain, but we had some low 30s and, mid 20 degree up. One morning I woke up and said it was 19 outside in Houston, Texas. Now, from June 6th, last summer, 2023, up until October 2023, we had not a drop of rain in the city. That ain't God's work. They create that because, Dr. Day said weather modification. They've been doing weather modification since the late 1800s. And I remember when we went back in 2017 when they were talking about Hurricane Harvey. They said, now, you don't know what's going to really be the after effects of a natural weather event, period. They said beforehand there were going to be 50 inches of rain in the Houston area after Harvey hit. How did they know? Because after Harvey had passed, Houston got hit with 54 inches of rain. Now, what you need to know, there was an Air Force pilot who was flying a plane down in the Corpus Christi area. He said the storm was dissipating over Corpus Christi. He said, and I was given an order to go back up in the air and see the clouds to intensify the storm. Now, don't take my word for it. Go look it up for yourself. But Dr. Day said weather will be used to wage war to create drought and famine. What are we seeing? He said the food supply will be monitored so no one can get enough food to support a fugitive from the new system. See, growing your own food will be outlawed under the pretext of it being unsafe. Just the other day, I saw they're pushing now that home gardens are causing more damage to the climate than commercial farms. I mean, really? Really? Because if that's the case, why are all these elites building underground bunkers and shelters and growing food in these places? He said people are controlled by means of the information they are given. Thus, the information will be selective. Not everyone will be allowed to own books. Certain books will disappear from libraries. Now, I remember, for years, since I've been married, not while I was single, since I've been married, I bought a lot of books. I don't buy as many now. My wife asked me to, stop for a while. But I bought a lot of books over the years. And once a year, I would gather up some books, because if I found a book that I thought was beneficial and they had several on the shelf, I would buy all of them on the shelf. Now, I knew I wasn't going to read it, but my whole purpose was to gift them to somebody. And every year I would box up anywhere from 50 to 75 books and take them to the library that's 2 miles from my house, if it's even 2 miles. The last time I went, they told me, well, you can take it to another location. We don't have any room for it over here. Now, I'm in a predominantly black neighborhood. I want black children to get access to stuff I didn't have access to when I was in school. But we got the people that's running the library saying, don't bring that here. And I told them, I said, no, I'm not taking these books anywhere. I said, if I leave out of this library with them, they're going back to my house. I said, and I'll find somebody else that appreciates them. Oh, well, we'll take them this time, but in the future, don't worry about it. I ain't been back since. But Dr. Day says literary classics will be subtly altered. And when I wrote my book, But Hey, What Do I Know? They said, if you can find a publishing house, it's not the easiest thing to find a publisher that's willing to take your work. So, and you self-publish, when you find a publishing house, they pay you in advance, large advance. You go on book promotion tours and all that. But what they don't tell you is you lose all rights to make any alterations to the book. And once you sign that contract, you no longer have any rights to the book. Your only thing that you control is the name on it. And the publishing house can go in and change all of your content so that if they feel like it reads better or if they don't like what you're trying to say in the book, it'll get removed. And because of the contract you signed, you can't do anything about it. And so almost all of the books that have come to publishing house have been altered. You know, but Dr. Day said people will spend more time in school, but they won't learn anything. I mean, he said there's going to be restrictions on travel. The last 3 years was the pilot program. He said there are going to be restrictions of private home ownership will disappear. Well, what's the phrase you keep hearing with the Great Reset? You will own nothing and be happy. He said people who don't want to go along will be disposed of humanely. He said there will be no martyrs. People will just disappear. So, what do you think about that? Leave some comments in the section to tell me what your thoughts on that. Talk to you later.